thank you very much for not only the help for the Cárter Center, but for your many messages you sent me lately since I announced that I have an illness. I'm getting treated for it very well. I've had my only prospective radiation of four places in my brain. And there's a new medicine that's been developed for my disease, and it's called pembrolizumab. It took me 3 weeks to learn how to say it. And I get those treatments every 3 weeks for 4 times. And I've had my second treatment so far without any ill effects. And we'll know what the positive effects were a little bit later on. So that's what I'm doing. One of the worst things I have to do is to drink. I started out with 84 ounces of fluids a day. And now the doctors have been nice enough to cut me down to 64 ounces a day. So instead of getting productive work done, I spend a lot of time in the restroom. So that's the extent of my physical. I'm going to continue now with the notes that Marianne gave me to tell you about the Cárter Center and what it's been doing. We have been working on a number of issues, as you well know. We have the Cárter Center is been establishing itself or preparing itself ever since we founded it 32 years or so ago. For the future, when Rose and I will not be active to raise money and to be here as leaders, we have a very viable and attractive and well-qualified group of trustees, roughly 22, with 11 of them being chosen by the Cárter Center and approved by Emory, and the other ones chosen by the president and trustees of Emory and approved by us. So we have a very good, permanent, and I'd say legally binding contract between the Cárter Center and Emory. We provide the active programs that Mary has already described to you, and Emory provides the academic background, research, and that sort of thing. So that's a permanent arrangement. We also have allies and friends from many countries in the world that have joined in with us in monitoring elections and preparing for peace and helping with diseases and that sort of thing. And those will continue as well. And we have an endowment that we built up over a long period of time that was about $600 million before the recent reductions in the stock market. I don't know exactly what it is now, but it's in that neighborhood. We'll build up that continually. We've never taken any money out of the endowment. The earnings have been going back into the endowment. So we are prepared, I'd say, financially and organizationally and so forth to continue quite a while. We have a new peace vice president, in fact, that I want to introduce tonight. And Jordan Ryan, would you stand up, please? He's in charge of all of our peace programs, working under Marianne, and he spent 24 years with the United Nations, and he's been ambassador or president in the embassies of several countries with which we do business. So that tells you what we're doing now. One of the things that we started at the Cárter Center back in 1989 was monitoring troubled elections. And this has been a very stimulating and I think productive process for us. If a country has never had any democratic elections and want to shift from a totalitarian or dictatorial government to a democracy, then the Cárter Center, within certain bounds of propriety that we raise, that they have to meet, we go in and monitor their first elections. And sometimes a democracy will get so powerful with the ruling party that the opposition parties are not willing to compete in a troubled election or an honest election because they don't think it's going to be honest. And quite often that opposition parties invite us in when we get permission from the incumbent parties, and we go in. And we just finished our 100th election in Guyana back in May. So we're still going on with that. And of course, our programs for doing away with troubled countries that have diseases, neglected tropical diseases, is one of our primary commitments. The majority of our money and the majority of our people are involved in dealing with health care for people who are desperately in need of that assistance. Our Guinea Worm program, which is most highly publicized, as you know, we started out with it in 20 countries and 23,600 villages and 3.6 million cases of Guinea worm. We're down now to 4 countries and very few villages, and so far we have only 11 cases of Guinea worm in the whole world, and we Human Rights Defenders Program, as you know, we're concentrating these last few years on the horrible abuse of women and girls around the world. We had another session on that in February of this year, and we talked about how women have been so vital in promoting peace in their own countries. They're the ones that really are in the foremost of the battles for peace, because they're the ones that experience the deleterious effects or the harming effects of war on themselves, on the people that they care for in their own home, and on their children. And so that was the main program that we have to. This fall later on, we're going to have a special program in Ghana, where we have both Muslim and Christian leaders who have already been trained in nearby Senegal. They have just finished that training, and they'll come to Ghana to meet with Karen Ryan and others. I was going to go, but my doctor won't let me go. It's a four-day trip, and the place is very much interior, so I can't go there. So other people will be representing me. But we are continuing to promote the concept that in religious scriptures, in the Bible and in the Quran and so forth, there is no allegation by God or Allah that women are inferior in any way. And we're trying to point out those places in the Bible, in the Quran, that guarantees equality of treatment for women, and to let the imams and the priests and so forth know about these facts. Recently, I've been traveling a good bit. This year, I've traveled about as much as I ever have before. I was in the Gulf States with Rosen, raising money and promoting assistance for Rosen's program that she'll describe a little bit later on for mental health, and dealing with some of the richest people on earth. And we also went later, I did, to Russia with a group of people called elders, and there were six of us, and we met with former President Gorbachev and other leaders. And then spent about almost 3 hours with President Putin in a private place where he lives, and we discussed all the issues that Putin now has on the agenda with President Obama and other leaders around the world. One of the interesting things, I'm not going to go into detail about it, it's quite an extended conversation, but he was saying how much he's been working with the opposition forces in Syria, along with the leaders of Syria. As you know, the Russians are supporting President Assad, and he's trying to bring the two together. And he said what he hoped to see develop was an arrangement whereby Russia and the United States could sponsor a session with just 3 other countries. One would be Iran, another would be Saudi Arabia, and the third would be Turkey. And if you think about the geography and the politics, that is a very wise decision. If you brought those 5 countries together, they could agree on any future for Syria could be most likely to be accepted by other countries. And I said, well, that's a darn good idea. What did Obama say when you mentioned it to him? He said, I haven't brought it up with President Obama yet. And I said, well, do you mind if I do that for you? And he said, okay. So the next day I sent President Obama and Secretary of State Kerry an email and told them this proposal. And then shortly after that, Secretary of State Kerry went to meet with Putin to explore that idea. I hope it will continue, because we need to get on the same side, whatever we possibly can, with Russia and also with China, by the way, to promote peace in the world and harmony and future economic development for everybody. China, by the way, as you know, we have the first official visit of President Xi Jinping with President Obama as an official visit later on this month. And he's been in office now for a long time. I would say he's the most powerful leader of China since Deng Xiaoping. And they've had 4 or 5 in between, but he is very powerful. And it's very important to me personally to see the United States and China cooperating whenever we can, and treating each other with respect and as equals. China has emerged, as you know, to be one of the greatest powers on earth since we normalized diplomatic relations at first of 1979. And China announced then under Deng Xiaoping that they would be open and also reformed, and opening up. So they reformed the entire structure of government within China as far as freedom and so forth is concerned, and people to move around, and a lot of things have changed. But they also now have diplomatic relations with almost every country on earth, and they largest economy in the world, and they're destined to be the top economy on earth. They have some very great challenges ongoing in China right now, with which Xi Jinping has to deal, and my hope is that he and President Obama can find common ground on as many things as possible. Although we've been at war with 30 different countries since the Second World War, since we normalized relations, since say 1980, China has not been to war with anybody. And my hope is that China and the United States can cooperate and bring peace to troubled places in the world. So that's happening this month, as a matter of fact. Another program that we have that's ongoing that I've been asked to mention is a right of people to have access to information. Access to information. We call it ATI programs. This means that citizens of different countries can have the legal right to know what their government is doing, what kind of contracts are let, what kind of sales are made of natural resources, things of this kind. And we kind of take it for granted in our country because we've had partially implemented laws for quite a while. It's still not perfect in this country, but we're trying to do that with countries all over the world, and we're working very hard also, additionally, the last year or two, to make sure that women have a right to have the same access as men to the legal insight into what their government is doing and what their basic rights are, and what loans they can get, and what agricultural assistance they can get, things of that kind. But we found that in Guatemala and in Liberia, for instance, that women are greatly deprived on an equal basis of having the same access that their husbands can get to government information. So we're trying to correct that problem as well. Now to get back to the diseases, and that'll be the last thing I'll mention. On river blindness, we've just finished administering our 220 millionth dose of medicine, Vectizan, that deals with river blindness or onchocerciasis. And the Cárter Center has been a transforming agent now in changing our basic goal in dealing with river blindness. And in the past, we just tried to control river blindness by giving one dose of medicine that we get free from Merck and Company to people that have river blindness, and they won't have it for another year. We have to give another dose. But Don Hopkins and his crew in Latin America, in 6 countries now, they have found out if we give more than one dose per year, like 2 doses per year, even up to 4, that we could completely eliminate the disease from that country. We've done that now in 4 countries in Latin America, and we on the verge of, with one exception of one little tiny tribe on the border between Venezuela and Brazil, doing it throughout Latin America. So we'll soon be free of river blindness in this entire hemisphere because of the work of that, and of our crew. And we've taken that knowledge to Africa, and we're now, instead of trying to just control river blindness every year, to completely eliminate it from one country at a time. We haven't yet set the goal of